And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is another video with regards to the latest CS2 update on the 23rd of October 2025. Apologies, a bit late. It was my birthday and I was out in London celebrating, and then I had family over, so I was a bit caught up in real life. But this is a huge update, a bit detrimental to the CS market. Um, this has changed the entire ball game of the market and the mechanisms within the market, with regards to knives, coverts, and any other skins potentially. I believe they will have some form of dependency with each other, and it will reflect from bottom up, from cases all the way up to knives. But yeah, looking into the update, they extended the functionality trade up, allowing to allow exchanging 5 items of covert quality as follows. So 5 stat track covert items to be traded for a knife, from a collection of one of the items provided. I'm not entirely sure if it's all equally probability. So if you put 5 different coverts and each 5 give a probability of 20%. Really interesting. 5 regular coverts can be exchanged for 1 regular knife or 1 regular gloves from the collection provided. So that is a very interesting complex. Hello guys. Out of 1,000 subscribers, I'll be giving away this NRG Hollow sticker from the Austin 2025 Major. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to be in for a chance to winning this sticker. All subscribers are welcome. Thank you very much. As you can see from the market, this has had such a detrimental effect. We were capping at about 6 billion, and then we crashed down to 3.5. And do you know what? All in all, I don't actually believe this is the end of the CS market. It actually opens up so many more avenues for people who are interested in the game, play the game, and are looking to invest in it long term. Because for me personally, the knives part of the market is almost kind of hyper inflated, where it almost priced out so many people, and it's almost like a collector's item where there's so many niches of like knives and like floats, different pattern styles, different like unique ambiguities on the knives, so like little patterns, little certain kind of images, or like something that kind of distinguishes it from all the other knives within the same category. So like, yeah. So we can see the market at 3.5 billion now. It has rebounded a little bit, back to 4 billion, but this has generally been the detriment of, I believe, predominantly knives, and there has been some other cases, cases and also other skins that have gone down. But an adverse effect that we have seen is the coverts. Coverts have significantly gone up due to this update. If you were holding some coverts during the time, you're a lucky bean, I tell you. But if you weren't, unfortunately, you probably faced the shortfall of the market and only saw losses, because everything else pretty much went down. At a point, you were almost able to trade a covert for a knife, which was almost like, wow, this is unheard of. Because coverts were going up for the cheapest coverts went up significantly. So if I look onto the market now, boom. I was fortunately holding a few coverts. I sold them, but it turned out to be the floor for coverts dramatically increased. And this is only looking into the battle scarred. I had a bad trip, field tested, and I bought for like £6. And I was like, oh, I'll take it for 40, mate. I won't mind that. I've just now reorganized my portfolio, but these coverts significantly, they used to be like, we can just have a look. It's a well-worn £30. Who would ever consider? But from £10 all the way up to £30. This is due to the benefits they now have. It's now taken their use case of just a play skin, or horrible looking play skin, to potential upgrades. And some of these battle cards can be used as fillers, which people may not want the actual upgrade from, but can be used as a cheaper filler in comparison to the factory new. So that leads me on to the infographic. Also, So this is a good infographic on how you should perceive some of the market, on how some of the prices will go up, or how what items to buy, and what, I guess, looking at the most demanded knives, you can look at potential skins or potential cases to buy. Because in the grand scheme of times, in my opinion, this is not financial advice, but for my opinion, um, there may be a grand scheme like long-term effect where there could potentially be a profitability from cases due to the increase in prices, so not from just the coverts, but also down below from like the industrial grade to the mil spec and stuff like that. Even the pinks, those increasing in prices because trade ups from lower specs is a lot cheaper than just buying a covert. So we can see a general change in the profitability within the cases, though with legislation coming out now with the EU, the Valve may be tending towards away from dropping any more new cases. So that's a little discussion down the line, but yeah, this is a nice infographic, so we can see which where the fades come from, where the butterflies, which cases to be looking at, what skins to be looking at. Um, for me personally, I actually think Dreams and Nightmares is really good to top up on, due to the fact that butterflies, you got the emerald green, you got the gamma dopplers, yep, phase 1 to phase 4, and potentially some spectrums. I do like the look of the spectrums as a rare case. From You can get butterflies in all kinds of fades, so I've been definitely having a look at those, and just some other ones that you may not want to initially buy unless the like average value of the case is now worth more. For me personally, I'm still looking at cheaper cases just because it gives me a smaller margin. But yep. So talking about coverts, with regard to coverts, with the with the update, I, in the grand scheme of time, I've looked at some of the information provided by CS Float, and there's 2.2 million potential coverts to be upgraded from classified, which is a pinks. So that is 22 million to 2.2 in factory new or minimal wear. Everyone talks about the lower ones, but they have an impact. But the higher tier quality ones definitely have a bit more of a margin to deal with. Um, that leads. So if I have 2.2 million coverts upgraded from a pink, that leads to about potentially 400k new factory new or minimal wear knives. And that's from pinks, not including the coverts already. I think that's another 500k, maybe less, but that's getting rid of the entire market for coverts. And this will have adverse effects. So thinking about this case in which there's a diminishing supply of coverts potentially within the market. So as they get consumed and consumed and consumed, there'll be less supply for people to buy, play skins, and it creates its own competition within there where coverts will slowly align with the knife price, in which they are potential to be attained. And so that so I could see a lot of covert skins maybe in the factory new and minimal wear still being held by a lot of people. For me personally, I'm gonna be looking at to buy some factory new and minimal wear, just because I think they'll appreciate in price due to people maybe not abusing, but taking advantage of the mechanism of upgrading to a factory new and minimal wear knife. So that leads me on to looking into the cases. I think it's been a general trend for the cases. We saw market skepticism, so looking at the price graph, bam, big retake update, and the armory the trade up update crashed. Market skepticism, people didn't believe or didn't see any more long term didn't treat the CS market as an investment anymore, and that led to a massive decline. So we from the date it was updated, so it was the 23rd, we saw the prices deflate so much, which was the craziest buy opportunity potential. We saw cases potentially drop 40-50% just for a blip, just for an hour or so, and then ride back up. Well, I say an hour, that was actually 7 hours. And if you were lucky to purchase at 24p, you'd already be up at least 50% nearly already. So taking advantage of these, I do think cases are going to become obsolete. As mentioned, due to legislation, these may be this may be a catalyst for Valve to remove some of the newer cases faster, like the recall revolution. Just due to them kind of aligning with EU regulations and laws. It doesn't mean they will completely remove them straight away because there is other markets, but in my perception, I think Valve will look for another avenue to make money from us, and whether it be stuff in the armory, uh, is I think that's the way they're going. As we can see in a lot of modern games, they have like an armory or like a shop in which you can generate like an in-game currency that isn't real currency and just buy something from there. So that's my take on it. That leads me on to the Day of Reckoning. The Day of Reckoning is 3 days away. Day of Reckoning is what I'm calling to be the increase in supply of knives. From those who done trade ups, people who just traded up coverts who fortunately had some. So for knives on the Day of Reckoning, I would be wary. So like I'm looking at this now. It's probably not the most expensive as of the Karambit case hardened. But let's look at it from the months. So it was trading at 1.3k and then it crashed. October 23rd it went down to 400, 300. There are no market sales for this at the moment, so you can see a huge 50% decrease in this. And I don't think this is the end. I do think prices will stabilize because we do put a value on certain things. The more rare knives, then like the kind of more appealing knives. I could see some form of stagnation or some form of like resistance to break any lower. Though I don't think this is the end. I do deem that there could be a huge increase in that. Well, not a huge increase, but some form of influence on the price of knives. Though after that, I do see, for me personally, I am looking at the knife prices to actually slowly, gradually go up in relation to the covert prices. So with these market mechanisms aligning, where coverts will reflect the price of probability of getting a certain knife. I know it won't be the same as getting a 20k knife now. They're probably like 10, but let's say hypothetically, one covert from like the Dreams and Nightmares case, an emerald an emerald gamma Doppler butterfly is like what 1.5. I believe the coverts won't generally trend all the way to near. So I would say like 1.5 divided by 5 is about 300 each for the coverts. Maybe around, maybe more, maybe less. So I would see a general like long-term trend towards price increases and them reflecting the previous prices, such as trade ups. And that's why it's really hard to find trade ups, because it's almost like embedded within the trade up that people have done the calculations and this is how much. This is the probability. This is the profitability. Like you either hit good or hit bad. Trade ups in its own right are still a gamble, but you know Valve will overlook that. As I mentioned with the convergence, it would just be the convergence of covert skins. It will just be somewhat of the market trying to find an equilibrium where they get rid of any synthetic potential for profit. Everyone will abuse it and they'll get to it first. People will drive prices down because they've made profit, supposedly, until realized they've made profit, and they want to realize their profit no matter how much or how big or how small. They will be competing with each other as feral humans are, and you know, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So that actually leads me on to what I'm doing and what I'm thinking. For me personally, I'm actually looking at cases, maybe factory news, I'm looking at cases that will give me potential good, kind of good foothold for people who want to open cases again, which may become profitable due to their mil-spec to coverts becoming more valuable. Okay, so that leads me on to looking at the potential of cases. So if we're looking at 7.5%, so 1 in 156.4. So if I look at CS stonks, it generally gives me an average of wait, CS stonks. This will give me, let's say there's around 4 billion cases, right? So doing the calculations, if I do 4 billion divided by 156, there's around 25.6 million coverts still available. Probably that's not guaranteed, but that's like on drop rate. So if there is, yes, so there's around 25.6 million left of covert still in the market. For me personally, this is why I'm considering buying more cases. 25.6 million isn't a drastic amount, but if you divide that by 5, that'd be around 5 million. Let's say 5.2, and that's 5.2 million more knives potential. So for me, in the grand scheme of things, I'm looking at cases. I love cases. Just as I mentioned in my previous video, these act as an index, and as there's increase in prices for coverts, they'll have an average probability of return on investment to be increasing. But as these get open, these will also appreciate in price. As people are chasing coverts, people may be taking advantage of the cheaper cases. In my opinion, I would be. So looking at like the Revolution, the recoil cases, even the snakebite. Snakebite's cool, you know, it's nice that it's being actively removed, but you know, I look at the Revolution case, there's a chance of vice gloves, king snakes, stuff like that. We look at the recoil case, exactly same as the snakebite, which is an interesting take. So, and look at the print stream for me personally is probably better than the coverts in the snakebite, even though it's a rare case now. And you can get the driver snow leopard, stuff like that, and this is almost half the price, not half, but like 50% less of the price of the snakebite. So taking that into consideration, even though there's a large supply and it's being actively dropped, I do expect that to diminish quite fast, and I do seem to think that there may be a relationship between some of the cases now in conjunction and Operation Fang. I know you get the print stream, but it's probably not the best investment for me. Like, there are some rare cases that I'm looking at, as mentioned. I would be looking at the Spectrum. I'm looking at maybe some, like the Dreams of Nights isn't rare dropped at the moment, but the Spectrum, I do think that the Fracture case hasn't performed well. That's just, I think, because the chase knives are the knives that people actually want are these, and it's flooded almost with all this other rubbish, and people don't really want. It doesn't have any value for them. It doesn't have any market value. Let me put that. So for me personally, these almost have a higher probability of getting more expensive items in comparable to one of these where you're almost unlimited, maybe like 3 times more to get something bad in comparison to getting some of the budget cases. But yeah, that actually rounds me up. So I have been stockpiling some of my cases. I would, not financial advice, but this is just my take and how I'm gonna navigate the market. I'm buying potentially some factory new mil spec pinks, and industrial grades, and anything that I can trade up. I'm going to put those in a storage container and just move from there. I will also be considering purchasing more pinks, as budget friendly. I may take advantage of the stat tracks, as they were somewhat, the normal factory news were kind of price pumped due to the Chinese investors, and which have now left the market. So I'm gonna be looking at different factory news in pinks, and be holding on to them. Maybe considering seeing what happens on the 30th. Wait until the 30th and see if there's another drop in the market. Maybe potentially buy some budget knives or like some cheap knives, in which I believe will appreciate. And then yeah, hopefully in the grand scheme of things, this is actually a beneficial thing for the CS2 market. I know it looks like a market crash. It's almost like it is. It's undeniable. Though for me, I also see this as an opportunity. It's not a complete loss. I've always been like not avoiding, but I do avoid investing in knives because I do see them as more collectors and like niche. And if if you want to invest risk averse, you want to be looking for things that act as indexes to kind of remove any risk or direct risk involved with a certain skin. That is why, for me personally, capsules and cases as a no-brainer. I know my capsules have gone down, but that's also like a new major coming up. But yeah, there are some. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask. I am going to be creating a Discord for the community, so hopefully you guys can yipper yapper and discuss things amongst you. But yeah, that's my roundup. It's interesting. I would like to see how the market goes and how the market fares. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and don't forget to like and subscribe, please. And I will catch you guys on the next episode. Bye bye.